Hello. Today I'm going to be doing a review of The Hero with a Thousand Faces by Joseph Campbell. And this is part of the Campbell Foundation's collected works. It's pretty cool. I like it. Hardcover. I don't have very many of those. So anyway, Joseph Campbell is a pretty famous figure who did a lot of work on like comparative mythology and how mythologies work and how they influence stuff today. So essentially this book is an exploration on how the hero figure takes the same journey or has the same kind of arc, and that it's kind of like a universal arc that's human, not necessarily culture specific, and then he uses all these myths from different cultures to kind of show how, even though the details might change, overall the symbolism and stuff and is very similar. And that there's like kind of a universal. He's really famous, and I mean the hero's journey and all these ideas are super popular and not hard to find. So I'm not going to go into too much detail about those. They are really interesting, and the book was really interesting. But since there's so much out there about it and better than I could explain it to you, I'm going to focus mostly on just what the reading experience of this book was like. It is my first foray into Joseph Campbell. I've heard of him and I've heard the ideas, but I've never actually read anything of his. So this was my first, and I looked up some videos to see what people thought, and a lot of people mentioned that he was really wordy or that his sentences tended to run on, which is true. It wouldn't bother me except that people pointed it out, so I looked for it. But he does get a little out there sometimes with his interpretations. I mean, they're well done. He gets a little out there. There's some of the stuff where it starts to drag a little, where he gets really abstract with it. Overall, it's pretty convincing, and it's interesting to see how these things apply. And I think if you're really interested in like literature or literature studies, it's a good book to read because it's something you can then apply to a lot of different stories and bring that in and give you a perspective on things and kind of maybe unearth new perspectives and stuff you've already read. And like I said, I mean, this is highly influential. A lot of people, a classic example is Star Wars. I mean, so you could use it in a lot of applications. But I'm not of the school of thought that this is like the be-all, end-all, like this is it, all stories follow this. I think that if you reduce enough details, essentially everything could be shown to be very similar. The more details you take away, obviously the more similar things are going to be. So I think to a point, to an extent, that his whole premise is true, but at some point, like, you're just being ridiculous. But I mean, he's a smart guy. He's a really interesting guy. I liked reading the book. There are a lot of cool like figures in there, or pictures, or artwork. That the one thing is the layout of this book is really weird. There's a lot of things that look like footnotes but aren't footnotes, and stuff is just kind of like different type size and different typeface for seemingly no reason other than like just to break it up. Like the way it's laid out is kind of bizarre. The chapters are all really short, so that's kind of interesting. You move right through it. I really enjoyed the first 2/3 of the book, and then once you get into like the last section, that part seemed to be the most boring for me. But I'd love, if anyone's read this, I would love to hear what you guys have to say about it. It's not really something I can give a star rating to, because it's not really a novel or story or fiction. It's more like a, I don't know, theory, commentary, I don't know. So if you're interested at all in that, or you want to just get some interesting perspective, check it out, because he's a really famous guy, and he has a lot of books. I mean, he has a whole foundation. But this one I think is a good place to start. So anyway, as always, happy reading and have a good life.